She cleaned out the account and blocked everything. Liam screamed in the middle of the bank, his voice cracking and his hands shaking as he clutched the papers the branch manager had just handed him. His face was beet red with rage and humiliation. He had walked in that morning with the absolute certainty that there were $200,000 waiting for him in the joint account he shared with me, his mother. $200,000 he planned to use to buy a luxury house for Jessica, his wife, as a surprise gift. A mansion with a sprawling backyard, a pool, and imported finishes that she had been showing him in architectural digests for months. But when the manager checked the system, the screen flashed a balance of $0 and 0 cents. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Your mother executed a full wire transfer 3 days ago, the manager explained with a professional but uncomfortable voice, adjusting his glasses as he stared at his computer screen. She closed the joint account and opened a new one exclusively in her name. Everything is legal and duly signed. I am sorry, sir, but you no longer have access to those funds. Liam slammed his fist on the desk with enough force to make the pen holder and the desk calendar jump. Several customers in the bank turned to look at him, startled. Jessica, who was sitting next to him waiting for the good news that would never come, turned as pale as if she had just seen a ghost. Her lips, perfectly painted red, parted in an expression of absolute shock. "This can't be happening," Liam muttered, running his hands through his hair in desperation. "That old hag couldn't have done this to me. She can't. That money was mine. I worked for that money. I put it there." But the truth was something else entirely. The truth was that every penny of those $200,000 came from the sale of a plot of land my late husband had left me as an inheritance 20 years ago. A plot of land I had sold 3 years ago specifically to secure my future, to have a nest egg in case of illness or emergency. Liam had convinced me to open a joint account for added security. That way, if something happens to you, Mom, I can help you quickly without complicated probate courts or red tape, he had said. Those were his exact words, accompanied by that warm smile that always melted my heart. How naive I was. How terribly naive. When Liam walked out of the bank that Tuesday morning, his face was transformed into a mask of fury I had never seen before. Jessica walked behind him with rapid steps, her heels clicking against the pavement like hammers. "You have to fix this," she hissed with venom in her voice. "You promised me that house, Liam. You promised me. All my friends already know we're moving. I even posted photos on social media. This is humiliating." Liam peeled out of the parking lot with such violence that the tires screeched. 30 minutes later, he was kicking down the door of my bungalow. The crash was deafening. The old wood gave way with a terrible crack, and the door swung open, bouncing against the interior wall. I was in the kitchen preparing my morning chamomile tea, just as I did every day at 11 o'clock sharp. The cup slipped from my hands in fright and smashed against the floor, splashing hot liquid and ceramic shards everywhere. "Mom!" Liam roared as he charged in like a raging bull. His eyes were bloodshot, and the veins in his neck were bulging. Jessica came in behind him, but she stayed in the doorway, watching the scene with those cold eyes that had always given me a bad feeling. My son advanced toward me with his fists clenched, and I instinctively backed away until my back hit the kitchen counter. In that moment, I saw something in his eyes that froze my blood. It wasn't just anger. It was hate. Pure hatred directed at me, his own mother. But then, Liam stopped dead in his tracks. He froze completely. His face went from fury to shock in a matter of seconds. His jaw dropped and his eyes went wide, fixed on something standing behind me. Frank, my neighbor and lifelong friend, had come in through the back kitchen door when he heard the commotion. Frank was a 68-year-old man, an ex-Marine with broad shoulders and hands like tree trunks. He stood nearly 6'3" and had that presence that commanded respect without needing to say a word. He was standing there, arms crossed, staring at Liam with an expression that needed no translation. But it wasn't just Frank that had paralyzed my son. In the living room, clearly visible from where he stood, was a new security camera with its little red light blinking, and another one in the hallway. And when Liam turned his head slightly, he could see a third one in the entryway. Everything was being recorded. And then the sirens were heard. I had called the police 5 minutes before he arrived, because I knew he would come. I knew exactly how he would react when he discovered what I had done. I knew him better than he ever knew me. Liam's face lost all its color. His hands, which seconds before were clenched into fists ready for who knows what, began to tremble. Jessica let out a stifled gasp from the door and stepped back when she saw the blue and red lights of the patrol car reflecting in the windows. "What did you do?" whispered Liam. And for the first time all morning, his voice sounded small, scared. "Mom, what did you do?" I stood up straight, wiping my hands on the apron I always wore in the mornings. My heart was still beating fast, but my voice came out steady and clear when I answered him. "I protected myself, Liam. I protected myself from you. But to understand how I reached that moment, I must go back 6 months in time. I must speak of the life I led before all this exploded, before I discovered the kind of man my son had become. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 65 years old, and for the last 15 years, I had lived alone in this 3-bedroom bungalow in a quiet neighborhood of the city. The house wasn't much, I admit. The walls had cracks that I had learned to repair myself with spackle and cheap paint. The roof leaked in the corner of the bathroom every time it rained hard, and I would place a blue plastic bucket to catch the water. The ceramic floors were worn from decades of use, with some loose tiles that clicked when I walked over them. But it was my home. It was mine. Every morning I got up at 6, made coffee in the old percolator that had belonged to my mother, and sat at the small kitchen table to watch the sunrise through the window. I watched the neighbors leave for work, the children walk to school, Mr. Russo open his corner store down the block. Then I dedicated the morning to my sewing. I had been a seamstress for 40 years, and although I was officially retired, I still took on small jobs. Hemming pants, fixing broken zippers, adjusting prom dresses. Nothing extraordinary, but it kept me busy and gave me a few extra dollars for expenses. My monthly Social Security check was $450. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I lived austerely, buying only what was necessary, with no luxuries or waste. I cooked my own meals, mended my own clothes, and walked instead of taking the bus when the weather allowed. The $200,000 in the bank was my safety net, my peace of mind. It was for medical emergencies, for some serious house repair, to feel protected in my old age. I never touched it except to pay some annual property taxes. Liam was my only child. I had raised him alone since he was 8, when his father died in that terrible car accident on the interstate. I worked double shifts for years to give him an education, decent clothes, a life better than mine. I skipped meals so he could eat steak on Sundays. I wore the same clothes for years so I could pay for his college tuition. He studied business administration and got a good job at an import company. He earned well, much better than I ever did. He married Jessica 5 years ago. She came from a family with money, or at least they pretended to have it. Always dressed in the latest fashion, always with perfect hair, manicured nails, flawless makeup. She worked as a marketing manager at an expensive clothing boutique. From the beginning, I noticed she looked down on me. When she visited my house, she touched things with the tips of her fingers, as if everything were dirty. She wrinkled her nose at my old furniture, at my sun-faded curtains, at my old tube TV that still worked perfectly fine. "Eleanor, you really should renovate this place," she would say to me with that sweet but poisonous voice. "It looks so dated, so neglected." I would smile and nod, but inside I felt a pang of shame. Shame that made me angry at myself for feeling it. This was my house. I had paid for it with my sweat and tears. I didn't have to feel bad about not having designer furniture or stainless steel appliances. Liam came to visit me every 2 weeks, usually on Sundays. I would prepare his favorite meal, that spaghetti with homemade marinara sauce he liked so much as a child. We would sit at the table and he would tell me about his job, his plans, the life he led. I listened attentively, happy to have those moments with my son. But in the last few months, something had changed. The visits became more spaced out. From every 2 weeks, they went to once a month. Then every 6 weeks, when he came, he seemed distracted, constantly looking at his phone, answering messages from work or from Jessica. The conversation became superficial. He no longer asked me how I really was. He only asked generic questions and expected short answers. And then the strange questions began. "Mom, where do you keep the deed to the house?" he asked one Sunday while we were eating. You should have everything organized in case of an emergency. Mom, do you still have that account at National Bank? He said on another occasion. You should check if they're charging you unnecessary fees. I can go with you if you want. Mom, this house is too big for you alone. Haven't you thought about selling and moving to something smaller, more manageable? I didn't give it much importance at the time. I thought it was genuine concern. I thought it was my son taking care of me, the same way I had taken care of him all his life. How foolish I was. How blind I was to the signs that were right under my nose. 3 years ago, Liam had convinced me to open a joint bank account. It's for safety, Mom, he told me with that smile that always disarmed me. If something happens to you, if you have an emergency, I'll be able to access the money to help you immediately. You won't have to worry about paperwork or bureaucracy. You trust me, don't you? Of course I trusted him. He was my son, my only son, the boy to whom I had dedicated my entire life. I signed the papers without reading the fine print. I transferred all my money to that joint account. Liam had total access, just like me. He could withdraw, transfer, do whatever he wanted without my authorization. But I never thought he would. I never imagined he would see me as an obstacle, as a resource to exploit. He also convinced me to modify the deed to the house. We should put it in both our names, he suggested during a dinner. For inheritance purposes, Mom? To avoid probate issues when? Well, you know, when the time comes. That way everything will be simpler. I signed. I signed because I trusted, because I loved, because he was my son, and I never thought he would betray me. Life continued with its quiet routine. I kept sewing, walking to the market on Tuesdays and Fridays, drinking my chamomile tea every morning, watering the plants in the small backyard garden. Frank, my neighbor, came over occasionally to drink coffee. We had been friends for decades. His wife had died 7 years ago, and he lived alone in the house next door. Sometimes we shared simple dinners, recommended TV shows to each other, complained together about the rising prices at the grocery store. Everything seemed fine. Everything seemed in order. But beneath that calm surface, something dark was brewing. Something I couldn't see yet, but that was soon going to explode. The first real signs that something was wrong began to appear 4 months ago, although at that moment I didn't recognize them as the alarm bells they were. It was a Saturday afternoon when Liam arrived unannounced. That was already strange in itself, because he always called before coming. He rang the doorbell insistently, and when I opened the door, I found him standing there with a tense expression on his face. Jessica was in the car, waiting with the engine running. She didn't even bother to get out to say hello. "Mom, I need to talk to you," Liam said without even giving me a kiss on the cheek. He walked straight into the living room and began pacing back and forth like a caged animal. "This can't go on like this." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it, son? Is everything okay? Did something happen?" "This house," he replied, gesturing around with a wide sweep of his hand. "Look at yourself, Mom. You live here alone in this place that is falling apart. The roof leaks, the walls have cracks, the furniture is 30 years old. This is no life for a woman your age." I felt confused by his sudden outburst. "But son, I'm fine here. This is my home, I know it. I have my neighbors, my routines." "You're not fine," he interrupted me, with a cutting voice that made me take a step back. "You're isolated. You're living in the past. You need to sell this property and move to something more modern, smaller, easier to maintain. An apartment downtown, for example. I can help you look for options." His words left me breathless. "Sell my house? Liam, this house has all my memories. You grew up here. Your father and I lived here. I can't just—" "Memories don't pay the bills," he retorted coldly. "Look at this place objectively, Mom. It's worth money, good money. You could sell it, buy something cheaper, and live off the difference. It would be smarter." I tried to explain to him that I didn't need to sell, that my social security was enough, that I was happy here. But he kept pressing, arguing, insisting. Finally, he left half an hour later, visibly frustrated because I hadn't accepted his suggestion. Jessica didn't even look at me when the car drove away. That night I couldn't sleep well. Something in Liam's attitude had deeply disturbed me. It wasn't concern I had seen in his eyes. It was something else, something darker. 2 weeks later, he came again. This time with Jessica, who walked into my house with slow, calculated steps, looking at every corner with those critical eyes that made me so uncomfortable. "Eleanor," she began with a honeyed voice as she sat on my old sofa without waiting for an invitation. "Liam and I have been talking. We're worried about your situation. A woman your age shouldn't be burdened with such a large and problematic property." "I am perfectly fine," I replied, trying to stay calm but feeling irritation beginning to grow in my chest. "No, you're not," Liam intervened. "And besides, Mom, we've been thinking. This area is gentrifying. You could easily get about $150,000 for this property. It's an opportunity you shouldn't waste." $150,000. There it was, the concrete number. The real reason behind all their sudden concern for my well-being. "I am not going to sell my house," I said firmly, "and I don't want to talk about this again." Liam's face hardened. "You're being stubborn and irrational. But fine. You'll see when this place falls down on top of you and you have no money to fix it." They left, leaving behind a heavy and tense atmosphere. I remained seated in my kitchen, trembling, feeling that something fundamental had changed in my relationship with my son. He no longer looked at me as his mother. He looked at me as an obstacle. The following weeks were an emotional roller coaster. Liam oscillated between moments of apparent normality and outbursts of coldness that left me bewildered. One day he would call me on the phone, and we would chat amicably about the weather and his work plans. The next day he would arrive at my house with a sour face and begin criticizing everything he saw. "This garden is a disaster, Mom. The plants are dead. Do you still use that old stove? It's dangerous. You should hire someone to deep clean this place. It smells like mildew." Every comment was a small stab. Every criticism eroded my confidence a little more. I started seeing myself and my home through his contemptuous eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt inadequate, insufficient, a failure. Jessica was even worse. When she came, she touched my things with evident disgust. One day I found her going through the drawers of my dresser in the bedroom. "I was just looking for a tissue," she said without a shred of shame when I caught her. But I had seen what she was really doing. She was appraising, cataloging, calculating the value of my few possessions. Another afternoon, while I was making coffee in the kitchen, I heard Jessica talking on the phone in the backyard. Her voice drifted clearly through the open window. "Yeah, it's horrible. I can't believe Liam grew up in a place like this. It looks like a homeless shelter. But don't worry. This will be resolved soon. We're working on it. The old lady is stubborn, but Liam knows how to handle her." The old lady. That's what she called me. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay quiet, not to confront her. I still had hope that it was all a misunderstanding, that my son couldn't be planning anything bad against me. How naive I still was. Frank noticed the change in me. One afternoon, while we shared coffee in my kitchen, as we had done hundreds of times, he looked at me with those wise eyes that had seen much of the world. "Eleanor, is everything okay with you? You look worried. You have dark circles, you've lost weight." I tried to smile and downplay it, but Frank knew me too well. Finally, I gave in and told him about Liam's strange behavior, about his insistence that I sell the house, about Jessica's hurtful comments. Frank frowned. "Be careful, Eleanor. I've seen cases like this before. Children who suddenly become very interested in their elderly parents' properties. It doesn't always end well." "But he's my son," I protested. "Liam loves me. I know he's brusque sometimes, but deep down he cares." "Love and greed can coexist," Frank replied sadly. "And greed almost always wins. I just ask you to be alert, to protect what is yours." His words echoed in my head for days. Was I being paranoid, or were there really reasons to worry? I still had no concrete proof of anything bad. I just had an uncomfortable feeling in my stomach that grew with every visit from Liam. Then something happened that changed everything. Something that opened my eyes abruptly and showed me the terrible truth I had been denying. It was a Thursday afternoon, around 3 o'clock. I had just returned from the market with my shopping bags when I saw Liam's car parked in front of my house. That was strange because it was a work day and he should have been at his office. I approached with curiosity, but also with a certain apprehension that had already become constant when it came to my son. When I opened the door, I found him in the living room talking on the phone. He hadn't heard me enter, because he was too concentrated on his conversation. I stood in the doorway, bag still in hand, listening inadvertently to what he was saying. "I tell you the money is already guaranteed," Liam said in a low but excited voice. "It's 200 grand in the joint account. I have total access. She doesn't even check the bank statements. By the time she notices, it'll all be over, and it'll be too late for her to do anything." My heart stopped. The bags almost fell from my hands, but I gripped them tightly, feeling my knuckles turn white. "Jessica, baby, trust me," Liam continued. "You're going to love the house you saw. 200,000 is exactly what we need for the down payment. The seller already agreed. We can close the deal next week. Your mom is going to be so impressed when she sees what neighborhood we're going to live in." There was a pause while he listened to what Jessica was saying on the other end. "No, she's not going to find out until it's all done. By then, the money will already be invested in the property. What's she going to do? Sue me? I'm her son. Besides, technically it's a joint account. Legally, I have the right to use it. And about the house she lives in, well, my name is on that too. If we need additional liquidity, we can consider selling it later. I'm sure I can convince her." I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. My own son was planning to rob me of everything I had. The money I had saved for years, the house that had been my refuge and my home. Liam laughed at something Jessica said. "Yeah, I know. You've waited a long time for this house, but we're almost there, babe. We're so close. Next week I go to the bank, transfer the money, we close the purchase, and we move. Mom doesn't even have to know until we want to tell her. And by then, there will be no turning back." I moved silently backward, slipping out of the house with the same care with which I had entered. My legs were shaking so much I could barely walk. I left the bags on the porch and walked away down the street, aimlessly, just needing to escape before Liam came out and saw me. I walked for an hour without knowing where I was going. Tears ran down my cheeks uncontrollably. People stared at me as they passed, but I didn't care. I felt as if my heart had been ripped out of my chest and stomped on right in front of my eyes. How had it come to this? How had the boy I raised with so much love, with so much sacrifice, become this? Into a man capable of stealing from his own mother? Into someone who spoke of me as if I were a nuisance, as if I were too stupid to realize what he was planning? Finally, I ended up in a small park 3 blocks from my house. I sat on a bench under a tree and tried to calm my breathing, to put my thoughts in order. I had to think clearly. I had to decide what to do. The first reaction was denial. Maybe I had misunderstood the conversation. Maybe Liam had a reasonable explanation. Maybe he was planning to ask to borrow the money and simply hadn't found the right moment to do so. But no. I knew what I had heard. I knew exactly what it meant. She doesn't even check the bank statements. By the time she notices, it'll all be over. By then, there will be no turning back. Those weren't the words of someone planning to ask for permission. Those were the words of someone planning a robbery. The second reaction was guilt. Had I been a bad mother? Had I raised Liam in a way that he felt entitled to take what wasn't his? Had I been too soft, too generous? Had I given him so much that now he expected everything of mine to automatically be his too? But then the guilt transformed into rage, burning rage that seared me inside. It wasn't my fault that my son had become a thief. I had taught him values, honesty, respect. The decisions he was making now were his and his alone. And Jessica, that greedy woman who only saw dollar signs when she looked around, had clearly influenced him, pushed him toward this. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. Enough crying. Enough self-pity. Now I had to act. I took my old cell phone out of my pocket and called Frank. He answered on the second ring. "Frank," I said with a trembling but determined voice, "I need your help. I need you to come get me. I'm at the park on Liberty Avenue, and I need you to go with me to do some very important things." "Are you okay, Eleanor? Your voice sounds strange." "No, I'm not okay. But I'm going to be. Just come, please." Frank arrived 15 minutes later in his old pickup truck. I got in without saying a word, and during the ride, I told him everything I had heard. I watched his face harden with every detail, how his hands gripped the steering wheel with increasing force. "That bastard," he muttered when I finished. "That damn bastard. Pardon my French, Eleanor, but your son deserves everything coming to him." "What am I going to do, Frank? I can't just confront him. If I do, he'll deny everything. He'll say I misunderstood. He'll make me feel crazy." Frank thought for a moment while he drove. "You need proof. You need concrete evidence of what he's planning. And you need to protect your assets before it's too late." He was right. Confronting Liam without proof would be useless. I needed to be smart. I needed to move carefully. "Take me home," I told him. "But stay close. I need to look for something." When we arrived, Liam's car was gone. I had left the market bags on the porch, and I went in with Frank right on my heels. I went straight to my bedroom and started digging through my papers. Old bills, receipts, house documents, bank statements from months ago that I had never thrown away. And then I found it. An envelope I didn't recognize, tucked between my personal documents in the second drawer of the dresser. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were papers. Documents with the letterhead of a luxury real estate agency. Architectural blueprints of a beautiful house with a large garden, a pool, marble finishes, and a letter of intent to purchase signed by Liam and Jessica. Property price, $500,000. Required down payment, $200,000. My money. They wanted to use my money as a down payment to buy a mansion for themselves. My hands shook so much the papers almost fell to the floor. Frank took them and read them with an increasingly grim expression. The letter of intent was dated 2 weeks ago. Liam and Jessica had already committed the money. They had already signed preliminary documents with the seller. All that was missing was for Liam to make the bank transfer to close the deal. "Look at the proposed closing date," Frank said, pointing a finger at a paragraph in the contract. "Next Tuesday." "That's only 5 days away, Eleanor. In 5 days he planned to empty your account and commit you to a transaction you can't reverse." I felt nauseous. I sat on the edge of my bed because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. How could he do this? How could he even think of doing this? Frank knelt in front of me and took my hands in his. "Listen to me closely, Eleanor. You don't have time for grief right now. There will be time for that later. Now you need to act fast and act smart. If Liam realizes you discovered his plans, he'll accelerate everything. He could make the transfer tomorrow." He was right. I couldn't break down now. I took several deep breaths, forcing myself to calm the panic that threatened to drown me. "What should I do?" I asked with a firmer voice. "First, you need to go to the bank first thing tomorrow morning, before Liam can make a move. Close that joint account. Transfer all the money to a new account solely in your name. Make sure he can't touch a cent. But he's going to find out. He's going to get furious. Let him get furious. Better he gets furious before stealing from you than after. And about the house, you need to talk to a lawyer. You need to get his name off the deed if possible, or at least protect your share so he can't sell it without your consent. That's going to cost money. Lawyers are expensive. You have $200,000 in the bank, Eleanor. Use a part of it to protect the rest. It's worth every penny." I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake in my bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling my world crumble and rebuild itself at the same time. I had lost my son. Or maybe I never really had him. The Liam I thought I knew, the loving and grateful boy who existed in my memories, was probably an illusion. The real man was this one who planned to rob me while smiling to my face. But I wasn't going to let him destroy me. I wasn't going to stand still while they stripped me of everything I had built. At 6 in the morning on Friday, I was already dressed and ready. Frank knocked on my door at 7 sharp, just as we had agreed. We had black coffee and toast for breakfast in silence, both knowing what was coming. "Are you sure about this?" he asked me before leaving. "Once you take this step, there is no turning back. Your relationship with Liam will change forever." "It already changed," I replied with bitterness. The moment he decided to steal from me, he stopped being my son in the sense that matters. Now he is just a man who wants to take advantage of me, and I am not going to allow it. We arrived at the bank at 8:30, just as they opened. I asked to speak to the branch manager, the same Mr. Henderson who had attended to me for years. He was a man of about 50, bald, with thick glasses and always a polite demeanor. "Mrs. Vance, what a pleasure to see you. How can I help you today?" I sat across from his desk and pulled out the documents I had found in my house. I showed them to him without saying a word at first, letting him read. "I need to close my joint account with my son immediately," I said when he finished reading. "And I need to transfer all funds to a new account solely in my name, an account to which he has absolutely no access." Mr. Henderson frowned. "I understand. But I must inform you that in a joint account, either of the holders can withdraw funds at any time. If your son has already initiated a transaction, that is why I am here now, before he can do it. Can you check if there are recent movements or pending transactions?" He typed on his computer for several minutes that felt like hours. I squeezed my hands in my lap, holding my breath. "There are no pending transactions," he said finally. "The last operation was 2 months ago, a withdrawal of $300 that you made yourself. The current balance is $200,115.42. I felt a relief so great I almost fainted. I was still in time. Liam hadn't moved the money yet. "Then proceed, please. Close this account and open a new one solely in my name, right now." The process took almost 2 hours. Forms had to be filled out, my identity verified multiple times, documents signed. Frank waited patiently by my side the whole time, being my silent support. Finally, Mr. Henderson handed me the paperwork for my new account. "All set, Mrs. Vance. The joint account is closed. All the money has been transferred to your new personal account. Here is your new debit card. You will receive a temporary PIN via text message to activate it. Is there anything else I can help you with?" "Yes," I said, pulling another paper from my purse. It was a document I had prepared that morning with Frank's help. "I need Liam Vance to be registered in the system as a person with zero authorization to access any information about my accounts. If he comes asking, he must not receive any data. None." Mr. Henderson nodded understandingly. It was obvious he had seen similar situations before. "Of course, it will be noted in the system. If your son attempts to obtain information about your accounts, he will be redirected to me personally, and I will inform him that I do not have authorization to divulge that data." I walked out of the bank feeling as if a 100-pound weight had been lifted from my shoulders. But I knew this was just the beginning. The money was safe, but the problem of the house remained. Frank drove me directly to the office of a lawyer he knew. Her name was Sarah Jenkins, a woman of about 40, with short hair and an intelligent look. I explained the whole situation while she took notes on her laptop. "What your son planned to do is technically not illegal in the case of the money," she explained when I finished. "Being a joint account, he had a legal right of access. Morally repugnant, yes, but not criminal. However, if he had sold the house without your express consent, that would constitute fraud, especially if you still live in it and do not receive fair compensation." "Can I take him off the deed?" I asked. "It's complicated. You are both co-owners. To remove him, I would need his signature, and I doubt he will give it voluntarily once he finds out about the bank." Sarah thought for a moment. "But there is something we can do. We can file a notice of interest or a lis pendens on the property title, essentially flagging that you live in the house and that any sale requires your personal, notarized consent. That would prevent him from being able to sell using forged documents or fraudulent powers of attorney." "Do it," I said without hesitation. "Do whatever is necessary to protect me." I signed more papers. I paid fees. By noon on Friday, my money was safe and my house had legal protections. I felt exhausted but also strangely empowered. For the first time in months, I had control. "Now what?" I asked Frank when we left the lawyer's office. "Now we wait," he replied. "On Tuesday, when Liam goes to the bank to make the transfer to buy that mansion, he's going to find out there's nothing to transfer. And then, Eleanor, then we're going to see his true face." The next 4 days were the longest of my life. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced thinking it would be Liam calling to confront me. But he didn't call. He didn't come. He didn't send text messages. It was as if he had disappeared from the map, probably busy finalizing the details of his grand heist, unaware that he no longer had anything to steal. Frank stayed close during those days. He installed security cameras in my house, small and discreet, that recorded everything happening in the living room, the kitchen, and the entryway hallway. Just in case, he said, I want to have evidence of anything that happens. He also changed the locks on all the doors. Liam had a key to my house, but it wouldn't work anymore. Saturday night, while we ate vegetable soup in my kitchen, Frank asked me something I had been avoiding asking myself. How do you really feel, Eleanor? Not about the legal or financial situation. I mean emotionally. He's your son. I left the spoon in the bowl and looked out the window. Outside it was getting dark and the streetlights were starting to turn on one by one. I feel like I'm in mourning, I answered finally. Like the Liam I knew died and a stranger remained in his place, a stranger who has his face but not his heart. You know what the worst part is? That I keep looking for excuses for him in my head. I keep thinking that maybe Jessica pressured him so much that he caved, that maybe he's going through problems I don't know about. But then I remember his exact words on that phone call and I know there is no valid excuse. Frank nodded sadly. A mother's love is the strongest thing there is. But sometimes that love blinds us to the truth. Liam is an adult. He made decisions, bad decisions, and now he has to face the consequences. That night I dreamed of Liam as a child. He was 8 years old and crying in my lap because some schoolmates had made fun of him for not having new shoes. I hugged him and promised I would buy him the best shoes I could afford. In the dream, he looked at me with those innocent eyes full of absolute trust and said, I love you, Mom. You're the best mom in the world. I woke up with tears on my cheeks. Sunday passed with agonizing slowness. I went to Mass for the first time in months, seeking perhaps some kind of comfort or answer. Father Rodriguez spoke in his sermon about forgiveness, about how forgiving doesn't mean allowing them to keep hurting us. His words resonated with me. I could forgive Liam someday, maybe, but that didn't mean I had to let him rob me. Monday I spent nervously cleaning the house, moving furniture, washing curtains, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind distracted. Frank came in the afternoon and checked the cameras, making sure everything was working perfectly. Tomorrow is the day, he said. According to the documents you found, tomorrow, Tuesday, Liam planned to close the purchase of that house. He's going to go to the bank sometime in the morning, and when he discovers he can't access the money. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Do you think he'll come here? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Without a doubt. And he's not going to come quietly. He's going to come furious. That's why I'm going to stay close. Very close. That night, I barely slept 2 hours. I lay listening to every noise in the house, every creak, every sigh of the wind against the windows. At 5 in the morning, I gave up and got up to make coffee. At 9 in the morning on Tuesday, I was sitting in my kitchen with a cup of tea that had already gone cold in my hands. Frank was at his house, but with his phone in hand, ready to come if I called him. The cameras recorded silently. At 10:15, my phone rang. It was an unknown but local number. I answered with a shaking hand. Mrs. Eleanor Vance? Asked a professional male voice. Yes. Speaking. This is the manager of National Bank, downtown branch. I wanted to inform you that your son Liam Vance was here a few minutes ago, attempting to access information on the joint account you two held. I informed him that the account was closed and that I cannot provide him with any data regarding your new accounts. He became quite agitated and demanded to speak with supervisors. I wanted you to know, in case he tries to contact you. Thank you for letting me know, I managed to say with a trembling voice. I also want to inform you that he called the police, threatening to press charges for theft against you. The officers arrived, but after reviewing the documentation, they explained to him that since you are the sole holder of the current account, there is no crime. He left very upset. I just wanted you to be warned. I hung up the phone and called Frank immediately. He was just at the bank. He knows. He found out everything. I'm on my way, Frank replied. Don't hang up. Keep the phone in your hand. I heard his quick steps through the phone, the sound of his door closing. In less than a minute, he was knocking on my back door. I let him in and we stood waiting in the kitchen. He might not come, I said with a hopeful voice. He might calm down and... The roar of an engine interrupted my words. Through the window, I saw Liam's car braking sharply in front of my house, jumping the curb. He got out like a raging bull, with Jessica behind him shouting something I couldn't hear. "Here he comes," Frank murmured, standing up. "Stay behind me." Liam didn't even ring the doorbell. He tried to open the door with his key, but the new lock wouldn't turn. I heard him cursing outside. Then he began pounding on the door with his fists. "Mom, open this damn door. Open it right now." His voice was loaded with a rage I had never heard from him. Frank looked at me and shook his head. "Don't open it yet. Let him calm down a bit." But Liam didn't calm down. The pounding got louder. "I know you're in there. Open up or I'm kicking the door down." "What did you do? What the hell did you do with my money?" "Your money," I repeated in a low voice, feeling rage beginning to grow in me too. "My money, you mean?" Jessica was screaming outside too. "Crazy old lady, you ruined us. We had a contract. The seller is going to sue us for breach of contract. You're going to pay every cent." "I'm calling the police," Frank said, taking out his phone. "Wait." I stopped him. Something inside me had changed. I no longer felt fear. I felt fury. Fury for everything Liam had planned to do to me. Fury for his betrayal. Fury for how he was now outside my house acting like he was the victim. I'm going to open it. I want him to see my face when I tell him it's exactly what he planned to do. "Eleanor, that's not a good idea. The cameras are recording everything, right? Then let it be recorded. Let there be evidence of everything he's going to say." I walked toward the door with firm steps. Frank followed me, positioning himself where he could intervene if necessary. I took a deep breath and opened it. Liam almost fell forward from the momentum. His face was red, his eyes bloodshot. When he saw me, all his rage seemed to concentrate in his gaze. "What did you do?" he growled. "What the hell did you do with the money?" "I protected it," I replied with a calm but firm voice. "I protected it from you." Liam's face contorted into a grimace of rage mixed with disbelief. "Protect it from me? I'm your son. That money was in a joint account. I have as much right as you." "You have no right," I responded, feeling my voice becoming stronger with every word. "That money came from the sale of the land your father left me. Every penny is mine. I put it in a joint account because I trusted you, because I believed you would never betray me. But I was wrong." "What are you talking about? I never betrayed you. I was just going to use the money for something important, to buy a house for my family. I was going to pay you back later." "Liar," I spat the word with all the venom I felt. "I heard you, Liam. I heard you talking on the phone with Jessica. She doesn't even check the bank statements, you said. By the time she notices, it'll be too late." Those were your exact words. I saw the color drain from his face. His mouth opened and closed several times without making a sound. Jessica, who was behind him, paled too. I didn't. That's not what I meant." "Don't you dare," I interrupted him. "Don't you dare lie to me anymore." "I found the documents, Liam. The papers for that $500,000 mansion you wanted to buy your wife. $200,000 down payment. My money. My entire life savings to buy a house for her." Jessica stepped forward with eyes full of crocodile tears. "Eleanor, you don't understand. We were going to take care of you. We were going to give you a room in the new house. You were going to live with us." "Shut up," I told her with an icy voice. "Shut up right now. I heard you call me the old lady. I heard you say this house looked like a homeless shelter. I saw you going through my drawers as if you were appraising my belongings. I don't want anything from you, nothing." Liam recovered some composure, and his expression changed. The rage gave way to something more calculating, more manipulative. I recognized that look. It was the one he used when he was a child and wanted to get something from me. "Mom," he said with a softer, more controlled voice. "I know you're upset. You have the right. I should have talked to you sooner. I should have been honest. But think about it. What are you going to do with $200,000? You're 65 years old, living alone in this house that's falling apart. We could give you a better life. You could have your own room with a private bath, a garden, a pool. You wouldn't have to worry about anything." "What you offer me isn't a better life," I replied. "It is dependency. It is taking away my autonomy, my house, my money, and leaving me at your mercy." "And what would happen when you didn't want me there anymore? When I was a nuisance in your perfect mansion, you would kick me out on the street with nothing because I would no longer have a house or money. Everything would be in your hands. Don't be ridiculous. I would never do that. You were already willing to rob me, Liam. Why should I believe you wouldn't do something worse? His mask of calm cracked again. It's not stealing when it's a joint account. Legally, that money was mine too. Morally, it wasn't. Frank intervened from behind. Liam seemed to notice him for the first time, and his expression hardened even more. You, he growled, pointing a finger at him. You poisoned her against me, didn't you? You put these ideas in her head. Nobody put anything in my head, I said before Frank could answer. I heard your own words. I found the documents you left hidden in my house. You dug your own grave all by yourself, Liam. Don't blame others for your actions. Jessica began to cry with exaggerated sobs. We lost the house. The seller is going to sue us for documentation costs. We're going to have to pay $50,000 in penalties. $50,000, Eleanor. You're going to ruin us. I didn't ruin you, I replied without a shred of pity. You ruined yourselves by planning to buy a property with money that wasn't yours. Those are the consequences of your decisions. Liam took a threatening step toward me. Frank immediately stepped between us, his imposing physical presence making Liam stop. You're not going to touch her, Frank said with a low but lethal voice. Not a finger. Understood? Or what? Liam challenged, though his voice shook slightly. What are you going to do, old man? Hit me? Go ahead. I'll sue you and take even this piece of junk house from my mother. Liam, stop, I tried to say, but he ignored me completely. You know what's the saddest thing, Mom? He continued with a voice full of bitterness. That I sacrificed so much for you. I came to visit you even when I didn't have time. I tolerated this depressing house. I endured your repetitive stories about the past, all because I thought you were my mother and I owed you respect. But it turns out you're selfish. You prefer to stay here dying alone, surrounded by old trash, rather than help your own son have a better life. Every word was a slap. I felt tears burning my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I gave you everything, I said with a trembling voice. Everything I had and what I didn't have. I skipped meals so you could eat. I wore old clothes to buy you new clothes. I worked double shifts to pay for your college. And now you come to tell me I'm selfish because I don't allow you to steal the only savings I have? When did you become like this, Liam? When did you stop being my son and turn into this? I turned into someone who doesn't want to live in poverty forever, he spat. Into someone who wants something better than this miserable life. But you don't understand because you settle for crumbs. You always have. Jessica put a hand on Liam's shoulder. Babe, let's go. It's useless talking to her. She already made her decision. Now we'll make ours. There was a threat in her words. I felt it like a chill running down my spine. What does that mean? Frank asked with a tense voice. Liam smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was something twisted and cold. It means this house is also in my name, 50% mine. And if I need liquidity to pay the contract penalties, I'm going to sell my share. Or better yet, I'm going to force the full sale of the property. There are legal processes for that. Division of common goods. A partition action. And then, Mom, you're going to have to leave this house you love so much. They'll auction it off and I'll receive my half of the money. I felt the ground moving under my feet. I hadn't thought about that. I had protected the money, but the house was still vulnerable. You can't do that, I said, although my voice sounded less sure than I would have liked. I can and I will. I already spoke to a lawyer this morning after leaving the bank. He confirmed that as a co-owner, I have the right to demand the sale if you don't want to buy my share. And I doubt you have 200 grand extra to buy me out. Technically, he's right, Frank murmured beside me with concern. Liam saw the doubt on my face and his smile widened. So here is my offer, Mom. You give me $150,000 right now, sign the papers, and I renounce my rights to this house. You keep your home and 50 grand to live out your last years. Or you deny me the money, and I start the legal process. The house sells at auction, probably for less than it's worth. The lawyers eat up a good chunk in fees, and in the end, we both lose. You choose. It was pure blackmail, emotional and financial extortion. But the worst part was that he was right. He could do it. Legally, he had the resources to force the sale of my house. I stared at my son in silence, processing his words. $150,000. He wanted me to give him $150,000 after trying to steal everything from me, and he threatened to take my house if I didn't agree to his blackmail. You have until tomorrow to decide, Liam continued with a cold and calculating voice. Tomorrow at 5 in the afternoon, I'll come for your answer. Either you bring the money in a certified check, or I start the legal paperwork. And believe me, Mom, I won't have mercy. I'm going to get you out of this house even if I have to drag you. You've heard enough, Frank said, pulling out his phone. I'm calling the police. This is extortion and threats. Go ahead, Liam sneered. Call. The cops will come, hear my version, check the house documents proving I'm a co-owner, and leave. Because I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm exercising my property rights. Or, what are they going to say? That it's a crime to want to sell my part of a house that legally belongs to me? Jessica crossed her arms with an expression of satisfaction. You should accept his offer, Eleanor. $150,000 is generous, considering everything. Liam could demand the full $200,000 as his half of the property value. He's giving you a chance to keep something. Generous? I repeated the word bitterly. Generous to steal half my savings after trying to steal it all. It's not stealing when it's legally mine, Liam insisted. His eyes shone with a mix of rage and triumph. He thought he had won. He thought he had me against the wall with no way out. And maybe he was right. Maybe there was no way to win this battle. I could give him the money and keep my house, but lose the majority of my savings. Or I could refuse and risk losing absolutely everything in a long and costly legal process. I need time to think, I said finally, hating myself for sounding so weak. You have until tomorrow at 5, Liam repeated. Not a minute more. He turned to leave, but stopped in the threshold. Oh, and Mom, one more thing. Don't try tricks like moving out or hiding the money. I already informed my lawyer of the situation. If he detects any suspicious movement in your accounts or with the property, we will act immediately. We could even request a preventive lien on your assets. So behave yourself. I watched them walk away. Liam walked with firm, confident steps. Jessica practically skipped beside him, clearly satisfied with how things had gone. They got in the car and drove off, leaving tire marks on my lawn. I closed the door and leaned against it, feeling all my strength abandon me. Frank held my arm and guided me to the living room, helping me sit on the sofa. You can't give him that money, he said firmly. It's exactly what he wants. He's going to take it, and then he'll still look for a way to take more from you. Guys like him are never satisfied. But he's right, I replied with a broken voice. He can force the sale of the house. I talked to the lawyer about protections, but she never mentioned this. I never thought he would go this far. I'm going to call Sarah right now, Frank said, dialing the number on his phone. He put it on speaker so I could hear. The lawyer answered on the third ring. Frank quickly explained what had just happened. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. It is true that as a co-owner, he can request the partition and sale of the common asset, Sarah explained finally. It is a right he has. However, there are some things that can complicate the process for him. The notice of interest we filed helps. Also, the fact that Eleanor lives in the property as her primary residence. Judges are usually more cautious when it comes to leaving someone homeless, especially an elderly person. But eventually he could achieve the sale, right? I asked. Eventually, yes. Although the process could take between 6 months and a year, and there are ways to make it more complicated. We could argue that the inclusion of his name on the deed was obtained through deception, that he manipulated her by taking advantage of the mother-son trust, that could invalidate his co-ownership. But we would have to prove it, Frank said. Yes, and it wouldn't be easy. We would need evidence of the manipulation. Testimony. Documentation showing the pattern of conduct. I have the cameras, I said suddenly. The cameras recorded everything that happened today. His threats, his blackmail. Does that work? Definitely. That shows his true intent. It shows he is using the property as leverage to extort her. Send me the recordings as soon as possible. I'm going to review our legal options. After hanging up with Sarah, Frank and I sat in silence. My mind worked 1,000 miles an hour, looking for exits, looking for solutions, but they all seemed to lead to the same place: a long, expensive, and painful legal battle against my own son. "There is another option," Frank said suddenly. "One you're not going to like, but you should consider." "Which one?" "Pay him. Give him the $150,000. Have him sign the quitclaim deed renouncing his rights to the house, and then cut him completely out of your life. I know it hurts. I know it seems like he wins. But think about it, Eleanor. You end up with your house secured and still $50,000 saved. It's not ideal, but it's something, and you get rid of him forever." The idea churned my stomach. It would be like rewarding him for trying to rob me. It would be like buying your peace of mind, like buying your safety. Sometimes in life, it's not about winning or losing. It's about surviving with as much dignity as possible. I spent that whole night without sleeping, turning the matter over in my mind. Frank was right in a sense. If I gave him the money, at least I would keep my house. But the idea of giving in to his blackmail infuriated me. It made me feel weak, defeated. At 4 a.m, I was still awake, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of cold tea between my hands, when I heard a noise outside. I peeked out the window and saw a figure lurking near my garden. My heart raced. I turned on the porch light and the figure ran away, but I managed to see who it was. Liam. He was spying on my house in the middle of the night. I checked the security cameras and saw that he had been there for almost an hour, looking through the windows, trying to see what I was doing. The level of obsession and control he was showing terrified me. I called Frank immediately. "He's here. Liam is outside my house watching me." "I'm on my way," he replied without hesitation. "And this time I am calling the police. This is stalking now." But by the time Frank arrived and we called the authorities, Liam was gone. The patrol officer who came took the report and reviewed the camera recordings. "Technically, he didn't do anything illegal," one of the officers explained. "He was on public property. He didn't enter your property. He didn't threaten you directly. The most we can do is have a record of this incident in case the situation escalates." "Escalates?" I repeated with a trembling voice. "What else does he have to do? Break into my house by force?" The officer looked at me with compassion. "Ma'am, I recommend you consider obtaining a restraining order if you feel your safety is in danger. But based on what I see here, it's a family conflict over property. Those things are usually resolved in civil courts, not criminal." After the police left, I sat in my living room feeling completely helpless. Liam had me exactly where he wanted me. He could stalk me, he could threaten me, he could take my house, and the legal system apparently couldn't do anything to stop him. "I am not going to give him the money," I said finally with a firm voice. "I am not going to reward his behavior. If he wants a legal fight, he's going to get one." Frank nodded respectfully. "Then we prepare for war. But Eleanor, you have to be ready. It's going to get ugly. Very ugly." He didn't know how right he was. Tuesday at 5 p.m. sharp, just as he had promised, Liam arrived. This time he didn't come alone with Jessica. He brought 2 other men, big, burly guys who stayed standing by the car like bodyguards. Pure intimidation. I was prepared. Frank was with me inside. The cameras were recording, and I had called the police preemptively, informing them that I expected a confrontation and feared for my safety. They told me they would send a patrol car to monitor the area. Liam rang the doorbell insistently. I opened the door, but left the security screen door locked between us. "Do you have my money?" he asked, without even saying hello. He had deep circles under his eyes and looked haggard. Clearly, he hadn't slept well either. "No," I replied with a clear and firm voice. "I am not going to give you a single cent more than what you already tried to steal from me." His face contorted into a grimace of fury. "Then you've made your decision. Tomorrow I start the legal process. By the end of the month, this house will be at auction. I hope you enjoyed living here, because soon you'll be on the street." "I don't think so," I said, pulling some papers from my pocket. "I spoke to my lawyer. She explained that the process you want to start can take months, even years, and that there are multiple ways to challenge it. I am going to fight every step of the way, Liam. Every document you file, every motion you make, I will countersue. It's going to cost you a fortune in lawyers, and you have no guarantee of winning. I'm going to win, he growled. I am a co-owner. The law is on my side. The law also considers the circumstances. The fact that you manipulated me to put your name on the deed. The fact that this is my primary residence, and I am 65 years old. The fact that you tried to rob me first and now resort to extortion. All of that is going to be presented before the judge, and I have the recordings that prove it. I saw the confidence in his face beginning to crack. You're lying. You have nothing. I have everything, I replied. Every word you said yesterday was recorded. Your threats, your blackmail, your admission that you wanted to use my money without my consent. I even have footage of you lurking outside my house at 4 a.m. like a stalker. All of that goes straight to the legal file. Jessica stepped forward with eyes full of fake tears. Please, Eleanor. We're family. It doesn't have to be this way. We can reach an agreement. Maybe not 150, maybe 100,000. We can negotiate. There is nothing to negotiate, I said coldly. You planned to rob me. You failed. Now you want to extort me. You will also fail. And when all this ends, Liam, you're going to end up with nothing. No money, no house, and no mother. Because even if you come out victorious in any legal battle, I will never forgive you. I will never forget what you tried to do to me. You're an idiot, Liam spat. A stupid, stubborn old woman who prefers to die alone rather than help her own family. I prefer to die alone than be robbed by my own family, I retorted. It was then that Liam completely lost control. He threw himself against the security screen, trying to force it. The bars shook but held. Frank stepped forward immediately, his imposing physical presence making Liam back up a step. Leave now, Frank ordered with a menacing voice, before this ends really badly for you. You're threatening me, Liam yelled. Did you hear that? This guy threatened me. I'm going to sue him too. I'm going to sue all of you. It was then that the police cruiser that had been watching from the corner appeared. The officers got out of the car with serious expressions. Is there a problem here? Asked one of them, approaching. Liam immediately changed his attitude, putting on a victim mask. Officer, this woman has money that legally belongs to me and refuses to give it to me. Also, this man threatened me with physical violence. The officer looked at me. Ma'am? I showed them my lawyer's papers, explained the situation briefly. I also mentioned that everything was being recorded by security cameras. This looks like a civil matter, not criminal, the officer said after listening. Sir, I recommend you resolve your property disputes through the appropriate legal channels. And ma'am, if you feel you are being harassed, you can request a restraining order. I already did. I lied, although I actually planned to do it the next day. The request is in process. Liam went pale. A restraining order? Against your own son? Against someone who threatens and stalks me, I corrected. The fact that you are my son gives you no right to treat me like this. Sir, I suggest you leave, the officer said with a tone that admitted no discussion. Now, Liam looked at me with so much hate I felt a chill, but he turned around and started walking toward his car. Jessica followed him, shooting venomous looks at me. The two men they had brought as intimidation also withdrew. Before getting into the car, Liam turned one last time. This doesn't end here, Mom. I promise you. You're going to regret this. You're going to regret doing this to me. The only thing I regret, I shouted back, is having trusted you. I watched them drive away until the car disappeared at the end of the street. Then my legs gave way, and Frank had to hold me so I wouldn't fall. I cried for hours that night. I cried for the son I had lost, for the relationship I would never have again, for the family that had been destroyed. But I also felt something else. I felt relief. I felt liberation. The following months were difficult. Liam made good on his threat and started the legal process to force the sale of the house. But Sarah, my lawyer, fought every step with ferocity. We presented the recordings as evidence of manipulation and extortion. We demonstrated the pattern of abusive behavior. We argued special protection for being my primary residence and due to my age. The process dragged on and got complicated. Liam spent a fortune on lawyers. I spent money too, but I was willing to spend down to the last cent before giving in to his blackmail. Finally, after 8 months of legal battles, the judge issued his ruling. He determined that Liam's inclusion on the deed had been obtained through emotional manipulation, taking advantage of the mother-son relationship. He ordered that the property return to being solely in my name. Liam would have to pay court costs for having initiated a lawsuit considered frivolous and malicious. When I received the notification of the ruling, I sat in my kitchen and cried again. But this time they were tears of relief, of victory, of justice. Liam appealed, of course, but his appeal was rejected 3 months later. He had lost everything. The money he spent on lawyers left him in debt. Jessica left him when it became clear there would be no mansion or life of luxury. The last I heard, he was living in a small apartment, working overtime to pay his debts. I recovered my peace. I recovered my house. I recovered my life. Frank and I became closer during that whole process. Not romantically, but as true life partners. He became the family Liam never really was. We started a small business together, selling crafts that I sewed, and he marketed at local craft fairs. We didn't make much, but it was ours. My house, my little bungalow with its cracks and leaks, remained my refuge. I fixed it little by little with part of the money I had protected. I painted the walls, I repaired the roof, I planted new flowers in the garden. And I learned something fundamental, that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is saying no. It is establishing boundaries. It is protecting yourself even when that means losing someone you thought you loved. Liam tried to contact me once, 2 years later. He sent me a letter asking for forgiveness, saying he had been under a lot of pressure, that Jessica had influenced him. But his words sounded hollow, calculated. There was no real remorse. He just wanted another chance to manipulate me. I didn't answer. I put the letter in a drawer and went on with my life. Now, at 68, I live quietly. I have my sewing, my garden, my friends in the neighborhood, my routine of chamomile tea every morning. I have Frank, who makes me laugh and keeps me company on hard days, and I have my dignity. I have the knowledge that when they put me against the wall, when they tried to steal everything from me, I stood up and fought. I wasn't a victim, I was a warrior. My house is still modest, my furniture is still old, but they are mine, completely mine, and no one, not even my own son, can take them away from me. Sometimes I wonder if Liam thinks of me, if he really understands what he lost. Not just the money or the house, but his mother, but the possibility of a shared old age, of new memories, of a real relationship based on love and not greed. But those are his questions to answer, not mine. I already found my peace, and that is the only thing that matters.